I'm going to say that our guest speakers need no introduction, but we're going to hear from Coach, who's going to introduce the principal. So, Coach Kinnan, if you'd like to come up and tell us about everything that's going on at Manatee High.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our principal. Your fourth year or fifth? Fifth year. Fifth year. When you get old, I lose track of the years. Bob Gagnon. Bob. We're still waiting for our school grade. For some reason, the state legislature or whatever they've done, the people they hired haven't done a very good job. Usually it comes out in the summer, and we're going to not know about it until like November or December. It should be November, and hopefully we'll be an A school again, and so that's what we're looking for. We're very fortunate that we have a great administration at Manatee High School led by Bob that makes it a lot easier, to be employed there. And I know our teachers and our coaches are very appreciative of his leadership skills, and he's done a wonderful job for us. One other thing that's happened this year, if you haven't been out there yet, the new Davis building is now open. They came in on time and under budget. And it's really great that they've put that up there, and those of you, as different events are hosted there, please come by and see it, because it is, it is really a state-of-the-art building, classroom building, performing arts area, the auditorium/theater area where we've plan on doing a lot of really neat things over the coming months and years at Manatee High School. This year has been an interesting year so far. We came off last year, had an outstanding season, went 13-1. We lost to the Catholics down south, St. Thomas Aquinas, that ended up in some polls #1 in the nation, won the state championship the following week after we lost to them in the semifinals. So what we said, we need to figure out how to beat these guys. 2 years ago, we're the only team in the last 4 years that beat St. Thomas Aquinas. So in 2009, we beat them, made it to the state championship game, but didn't realize we had another week we had to play. And unfortunately, we didn't win that week. We lost to Tampa Plan, and actually, after one of the teams we had played earlier ended up forfeiting the game, we actually ended up with an overall record of 14-1. So. We've been really pretty good the last couple of years. We had a returning quarterback named Cord Sandberg that was Player of the Year last year in the Manatee, Sarasota County by the Herald Tribune. Was second team All-State to the Aquinas quarterback to sign with Iowa as a senior last year. So we had a lot of people contacted us about games to play, out-of-state people. We didn't get many in-state people contact us. Because of some of the players that we had coming back. And it's been a new phenomenon probably in the last 7-8 years, and I think it's a result not only of ESPN, ESPNU, ESPN2, all the different television markets that are out there, but also Rivals.com, iHigh.com, all these recruiting services. So if you're a graduate of your whatever your alma mater is, if it's an Auburn or a Florida State or whatnot, a lot of people are big football fans, and they follow the recruiting process. Who's out there? Who are people? They're on blogs, they're on websites, and all this has thrust the football up in elevation, and it is filtered down to the high school level. And like I said, in the last 7 or 8 years, there's been a lot of high schools that have had the opportunities to play all around the country. In 2010, we went to Pittsburgh and played Woodland Hills, who ended up being runner-up in their state, and we were fortunate enough to go up there, play real well, and beat them. This year we had several people from other areas that contacted us, and we decided to try and play one game at home and one game away. So we opened with a team right outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland named Our Lady of Good Counsel, who won the state championship last year in Maryland, had a lot of people back, including the #1 recruit in America, a kid named Stephon Diggs that Florida and everybody else is going after. He's a 5-star recruit and a very, very talented football player. And we decided I met their coach at the U.S. All-American game in San Antonio. We had a kid named Mike Blakely was playing in that game in January, and he had one of his former players was playing there also. And we actually ended up on the bus sitting beside each other on a bus trip where we went to one of the events together and started talking, and we ended up deciding that it might be good for both programs to try and play a game. So we ended up scheduling Our Lady of Good Counsel, and I said, this will be good. We're playing private schools. As a matter of fact, the last 5 games we've played 4 private schools. Going back to the semis last year with St. Thomas, we played American Heritage, which is a private school, Our Lady of Good Counsel, and then we played Riverview, who we throttled, and then the other private school, Don Bosco. So we ended up with a game against Our Lady of Good Counsel, went up there, played very well, except we were 1 for 5 in field goals, made a couple unforced errors, and we ended up losing in double overtime in a game that we had opportunities to win. It was tough. We didn't, we are better than maybe what we showed that night, and we had chances and we let it get away. But Our Lady of Good Counsel this last week was ranked #4 in the nation. So, they weren't, as I was quoted in one of the papers, they're not the weak sisters of the poor. That's not the school they're from. They're pretty good. And, we went there, and their fans, it was like a college atmosphere. Their fans, I guess, my dad was Catholic, so I understand that. But they had their tailgate, they had their beer and their wine and their other stuff out there on their school grounds, having a good old time. I said, oh my gosh, this is at the high school level, and they had had people all over with their campers and their cars, and it was quite an event. Then we ended up with another school that we actually tried to play last year, who in 2009 was national champions, Don Bosco Prep. When we beat St. Thomas, they were #2 in the nation. And by us beating St. Thomas, they became national champions. Well, they lost most of those guys. And so, obviously, we tried to play them last year. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. They ended up playing a team out of St. Ignatius out of Ohio the week that we were trying to play them. So that sort of fell through. But then the person that had helped put together their St. Ignatius game was the same guy that put together our trip to Pittsburgh. And so he said, I've got an idea. Let's come and see if we can hook up Bosco and Manatee. Well, what I didn't realize, they lost a lot of guys 2 years ago, but last year they had like 10 of their 11 starters on defense were back, and 9 of them are Division I football players. They were pretty good. And so I said, well, this will help us, if we play good people, and before the season, I felt that we had a chance to win both games or possibly, split at the worst. I didn't think that we'd end up losing both games, which we ended up doing. But again, our special teams deserted us. We had a punter drop the snap. We, on the 6-yard line, picked it up and kicked it out of bounds on the 10. So they had to go 10 yards, but we stopped him and held him to a field goal. Then later in the ball game, we were on our 35-yard line, and our center snapped it over the punter's head, and instead of picking it up and running it out of the end zone and having a 7-point game, he got tackled inside the 5, which they were able to take in and score. So we made mistakes yet. We were leading at halftime 7-6. We're leading with about 8 minutes to go in the game, 10-9, and we self-destructed a little bit. So we're 1-2, but we're probably the best 1-2 team in the nation in high school. Because Bosco was ranked #1 in 4 polls last week. Every poll, ESPN, USA Today, Max Preps, and one other when they were ranked #1 in the nation. So the teams we've lost to are very good. We think we're very good too. One thing that they've done, they've helped us understand a little bit more about our team. We had Riverview down 38-0 at halftime. We didn't learn a whole lot there other than that we're a whole lot better than Riverview. We're a whole lot better than the team we play this Friday night. That's no contest. We have an open date, so we're good to go. But the tough part is that we've got 2 weeks before we play again. And then we host Southeast, who's 3-0, should be 4-0. They play Sarasota this Friday. They shouldn't have any problem with Sarasota. They're not that good. So they should be 4-0 coming into Hawkins Stadium. It is a game will be Bright House Network, Southwest Florida Game of the Week. It'll be televised. It should be a packed house. And, I think our football team is ready to play a public school again. We're excited about the opportunity. It's also the U.S. Marine Corps has what they call a rivalry game. There's a group of these games all across the country. They do about 3 a week. They present trophies and a whole bunch of other stuff. And since this has been a big rivalry, last year it was designated a rivalry game. Again, this year it's a rivalry game. So it'll be a lot of festivities going on pregame and after the game. And we got a big trophy sitting in our administration building from last year's rivalry game. So we hope to retain that and play well in a week and a half. But it was like I said, it was an interesting year. I said, I'm getting up in age. I don't have many years left in me. So I said I really felt like it was in our kids' best interest to be able to try and play some people like this. Plus, what an educational experience. We had over half our football team had never been on an airplane when we flew to Washington, D.C. We had only, I think, 8 kids had ever even been to Washington, D.C., to go to your nation's capital, to be able to go to the Lincoln Memorial, all the things that they've studied in their history books, go to the White House and watch the protesters that were outside the White House for the oil pipeline from Canada, where I remember 2 days before I watched Daryl Hannah get arrested. She wasn't there. She was already gone. But they were still out there. But it was democracy in action. And, I think we did this on Saturday after the game, and it was a great educational experience. Next year we go to New York City, be able to go to Ground Zero and do those things when we go up to return the engagement with Don Bosco and Bergen Catholic in the doubleheader that Plant and us hosted. I know this when Bergen Catholic came out. That was the second game was Tampa Plant was playing Bergen Catholic. Bergen Catholic only lost last year was to Don Bosco. And after we watched them warm up, my coaches came up and said, "We scheduled the wrong team. We should have played Bergen Catholic and let Plant play Bosco." But it is what it is. And, we went out and made a good account of ourselves. It wasn't as good as we would like to have done, but, we're one game or 2 games doesn't make a season. That part is behind us. We got 7 regular season games in a row. Hopefully we can go on and win the district and represent and get a chance to maybe play a St. Thomas Aquinas, which would have to come to Manatee this year if we can get to the semis. And I think having played the 2 people we've played, we certainly will help us if we can make it that far. Now, we may not make it that far, but again, that's our goals and our objectives every year. As I said, we've got a good nucleus of people coming back, starting with our quarterback, and we had his brother coming back, who was on the varsity as a 9th grader. We had 2 9th graders on the varsity, a kid named Darius White, who's been our leading tackler the last 2 years. He's a linebacker, Division I linebacker, 6'1", 230, played really well the first 3 games for us. And we had Chase Sandberg. Well, unfortunately, the last Friday before we started the season, Chase tore his labrum in his shoulder and had surgery, and we lost him for the year. Well, Chase was a hidden talent in that he was our holder. He also was our backup kicker. In the against Good Counsel, we dropped a center quarterback snap on a field goal, the first field goal attempt, which probably wouldn't have happened had Chase been in there. And last week we dropped an extra point snap. That was not a great snap, but it was one that he would normally get on there. Plus, he was a 190-pound wide receiver that was our best blocking wide receiver. Well, the guy that took his place in that position was 140 pounds, and he had a real hard time blocking their 215-pound strong safety. And, one thing we realized, we're making a change. We're going to move him to another position, and we're going to put a 200-pounder out there, that's a different position player when we run some certain plays, because physically we were asking the kid to do something. His technique was great, but he just got run over. He had a hard time doing that. But so we had those. We had the two Sandberg brothers coming back. We had what we felt was a very good nucleus on defense. We lost 3 Division I defensive players. One went to Iowa State, Chris Pompey. His brother signed with Eastern Kentucky. Quentin Pompey went to Iowa State, Chris went to Eastern, and Jakar Wilson went to Eastern Kentucky. So we had 3 kids that were gone, but we've replaced them with some pretty good players. Blake Keller took over at end and has really played well for us. We have a young man named Calloway that may be one of the best defensive linemen in America. He's 6'1", 300 pounds, and can run. He's already been offered by South Florida and Miami, and I think the only reason not many people have offered him that, because he didn't get to play until the playoffs very much last year when our other tackles got hurt. I know Art Kehoe at Miami has been at Miami many, many years, back when they had Warren Sapp and all the great players, Russell Maryland and all that. And he came last spring and said, "Whoa, that kid looks like all the guys that we used to have at University of Miami." So we think Derek is going to be a special player for us. He's really been dominating so far, and he's a good kid, good student. His uncle is our head baseball coach, Dwayne Strong. His mother is a Manatee graduate. And when he was a freshman, he lived in California with his mother, but they have since moved back to Bradenton, which we're very thankful for. And then we have another kid that's a sophomore named Demarcus Christmas, who's 6'3", 285, but he's only a 10th grader, but he also will be a very recruitable kid. And then beside him on our front four is our junior, who's been a 3-year starter, Marquise Dawsey, who really played well Friday night for us, and didn't have but I think 1 sack, but had a lot of pressures on the quarterback. And then we have Herschel Kaywood that played exceedingly well as a 3-year starter at linebacker. And then we have Jalen Holmes at corner, and then we had Brent Yancey at the other corner. Were starters from last year. The one kid didn't have a real good game. He ended up letting a big-time prospect beat him deep, and those are one of the things. Keep it in front of you. They don't always do what you coach them up to do. And then we have a kid named Clint Heaven, who's been offered by about 20 different universities as a senior, also a 3-year starter. And then we have a kid, Rashawn Goff, is our other outside linebacker. So we've got a good defense. Our defense has played well enough all 3 games for us to win all 3. The thing we've struggled with right now has been our offense. And we lost 3 offensive linemen from last year. 2 of them signed Division I. One's at FIU, Prince Matt, and Galati. Nick Galati's at Jacksonville. And then we lost one to a Division II school that graduated. And the guys that have replaced him are going to be good players, but they're not there yet. And they especially one of them had to go against Darius Hamilton, who's probably, if he's not number 1, he's the number 2 defensive lineman in the nation for Don Bosco last week. So he created a lot of problems for us. Our backfield, we lost Mike Blakely, who now is at Auburn, and I know when I was looking at some film the other day, and I knew he was good, but I didn't realize how much we were going to miss him with but he can make people miss you and make the big plays. Right now, we're lacking that at that position. However, we've gone a little bit more with a young man named Anthony Lauro, who's only a junior, that has really played well for us. He's been a wide receiver / running back, so we're counting on him to be a big help for us. And then at the receiving corps, we got a bunch of no-name guys out there that are just trying to catch the ball and block the perimeter that hopefully we'll get better at. But we're going to play an exciting brand of football. We've got a good group of kids. The coaches are working hard. The kids are working hard. We're battle tested now, and we're gonna make a good account of ourselves. We got a kicker that, if he shows up properly against Riverview, he had 9 kickoffs in the end zone. 8 of them were 7 to 8 to 10 yards deep. The opening kickoff the other night, he kicked through the goalpost. The adrenaline was pumping. but he also dropped a punt, and he had one go over his head and made, things we'd worked on. You run it in the end zone and take the safety, where we didn't do that. And Nick's got a lot of talent. It's different when you take a 16 or 17, 18-year-old kid and you put him in that type of pressure situation. Sometimes it's very difficult for them to perform as well as you would hope. We can hopefully learn from this and become a better football team down the road, and that's what our plans are. But I just wanted to give you an update on the different people that we've got coming back. We have some really exciting players that are fun to watch, and if you haven't been to a high school football game, come out. It's really exciting. And next week on the 30th, come out to our Southeast game. You'll be impressed. There'll probably be 7,000 to 8,000 people that will be there, and it will be electrifying. And you're going to see some really talented players. Southeast has one of the best corners in America in the Pool kid. They've got a very good quarterback. They've got a great running back and a sophomore named Courtney Allen. So there's going to be some really talented players out there on the field. But I urge you to come out and support us or support your other high schools that are there. Now, luckily, we're not out of state anymore. We're playing the local people the rest of the way, except we've got a team out of Weston, Florida, over in Fort Lauderdale, Cypress Bay for homecoming, that was in the semifinals last year in the biggest classification. They also have 4,400 students. They're the biggest school in the state of Florida. So their only loss, they lost to St. Thomas last week. So that's their. They only lost 2 games. They lost to St. Thomas last year, and they lost to Miami Central that won the 6A state championship last year. So we got some good people that we're going to get a chance to play, and we urge you to come out. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything that you got. And we play at Manatee High School at Hawkins Stadium right there. Yeah, it's on 32nd Street and 9th Avenue, just off 4 blocks from Manatee Avenue. Yes, sir.
Who do you see as the most likely contenders for the district championship? I mean, Manatee, say, what other 2 schools?
Us and Venice. Yeah, Braden River obviously is struggling. Sarasota, I don't think is, they're going to try, but I don't think they have quite the talent level. But Venice is 2-0. They've crushed 2 teams, but they're teams that, again, we could be 3-0, but we decided to play up, and we did. And unfortunately, we're not 3-0, or we're 1-2, but we're pretty good. I still think we're the team to beat in the area. Charlotte in our region is very good. That would in order to get to St. Thomas, but our first 2 rounds of the district is going to be our people or Pinellas County, and I don't think there's anybody there that's comparable. Now, you get a quarterback hurt, or you get some, we lose a couple key people, then all of a sudden you go from being a really good team to being an average team. So that's something you got to always guard against. Yes, sir.
Enjoyed the game Friday night. Sorry that it turned out the way it did, but there seems to be a potential with these out-of-state people coming in, and other Manatee High has a specific value in bringing in a crowd, bringing in funds. What's the economic impact to Manatee High and community from high school football? Okay,
that game is a what we call a wash. We're going up to New York City at no charge. We made no money off this game. So the people that ran the show, Calloway Boy Sports Marketing, with Manatee Memorial Hospital, who was a corporate sponsor, the Suncoast Challenge, the first Suncoast Challenge, that covered their expenses and will cover ours and Plant's expenses to go up there. So there's no cost to taxpayers on that. Our trip to D.C., that was not funded with any money from the taxpayers. That was all from either booster funds or gate receipts from good counsel paying our way and our expenses up there. So the economic impact, I think it was a good economic impact for the community coming in. It helped the businesses in the local area and stuff like that. So I think there was some economic impact for Manatee County for this last. The 2 teams stayed in Manatee County. They traveled with a lot of people. They were at the Holiday Inn at the airport and the Holiday Inn out at Lakewood Ranch. They ate at our restaurants. They did did a lot of stuff here in the area and in the community. So and like I said, they brought hundreds of fans with them that were spending a lot of money. Those Catholics. I know this. The promoter told me the year before, the night before their game when they played with St. Ignatius up in Ohio, their bar bill for their school was $16,000. So somebody did well on it. I know that. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Where are some of the you mentioned Mike, but what about some of the former players? Kind of where are they?
Well, we have Quentin Bundridge and Quentin Pompey are at Iowa State. They're both being redshirted. They both are doing well. We have two at Eastern Kentucky. We have Chris Pompey and Dracar Wilson, two defensive linemen that are there. Chris is going to be converted to a linebacker, and they're very high on both of them from the word we get. And we have Prince Matt is being redshirted. He's at FIU that just beat UCF. They won their conference last year and won their bowl game. They're doing a great job down there. We have Nick Galati's at Jacksonville. We have a couple kids at Methodist College in North Carolina from last year. Previous years, Ace Sanders is at South Carolina. He's the starting wide receiver and their punt returner, doing well. His dad coaches our secondary, Tracy, and teaches at Lincoln Middle School. We have Breon Carnes is at Nebraska. He's the backup quarterback as a redshirt freshman behind the Martinez kid. Has had a good camp, had a great spring practice for him. Those are basically and then Mike Blakely originally had signed with Florida, but ended up deciding to go to Auburn and was unable to play this fall, even though they appealed to the NCAA. And so he's sitting out, but they really were high on him this fall, and when they watched him practice, and think he has a chance to really impact their program. But those are basically the main kids that are out there. We got a couple other kids that had been at four-year schools, have since transferred to junior college, Ben Axon and Eric Williams, that hopefully will land on their feet. As a matter of fact, Danny Hope, the head coach at Purdue, was in my office today. I recruited Danny out of high school, and he played for me for 5 years at Eastern Kentucky, and he's the only coach I brought with me in 1981. When I came to Manatee, he got his coaching start here, and his first 4 years were at Manatee. And he had signed Eric Williams, and both Danny and I had tried to tell Eric after your freshman year, don't leave. You need to stay there. He ended up with a 2.7 GPA, was academically doing well, everything. And some of these kids, they're not happy that they're not playing right away. Well, in ninth grade, he didn't play right away for the varsity football team. I mean, he was on I think he was on the JVs. He wasn't even on the varsity. With us. He was traveled with them and was redshirted his freshman year. But some of these guys, they want instant success, and I think that's part of the problem we're seeing. Plus the recruiting. Coach Hope was telling me the class they're getting ready to sign, they've evaluated 7,000 football players to sign 20-something people. And he says, this is ridiculous. He says, all we do is recruit. They have an open date this week, and then they host Notre Dame next Saturday. So it's going to be and it's at Purdue. But he said, that's all we do. He said, I've already got 16 commitments of kids that are juniors for our class of 2013. We've already got 16 commitments at Purdue for that year. He was he was going down to Venice to look at their running back as a potential fullback. He was going down to Cape Coral since they're open and it's an evaluation week. They're allowed to go out and look at kids. And then he was going over to Mainland tomorrow morning to be there before he had to fly back to Purdue. But it's really changed the recruiting scene out there with the early recruiting and early commitments. I mean, we've got kids that have already been offered that haven't completed their junior year. Anything else? Thank you very much.